you go.
Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, September 24th, 2019. February 24th, 2019, and we are live tonight. Hope everybody's doing well. Last Sunday, we were off because of the snowstorm that hit Detroit. And so they gave us it was really bad outside. I was coming back headed home from doing a lecture, and the snow was coming down then, okay? So we didn't broadcast live last Sunday, and actually the Sunday night shows did not broadcast live at all last week. But we're back tonight, okay? It is Sunday, February 24th, 2019. And you listen to the African History Network show. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It's been a very, very busy February, okay? We know this is African American History Month. We're going into the last week of African American History Month 2019. I've been speaking at different events in Inkster, Michigan. The city of Inkster has organized 28 days of events dealing with African American History Month, okay? So I've been speaking at a lot of those events also, okay? And we want to give a shout out. You know, we had Councilwoman Sandra Watley on earlier in the month, and we were talking about the events that they had planned. So I was over at New Birth Church today in Inkster, and I want to thank everybody for having me over there. I spoke a little bit at their African American History Month celebration, and then also I was a vendor over there. And then yesterday I was at Nanny's Knowledge Cafe doing a presentation dealing with breaking the chains while we celebrate African American History Month and how it reconnects us to our history and culture, and also dealing with this year's theme, dealing with African American History Month also, okay? So what we're going to deal with tonight, you know, there was some huge news stories that came out this week, and I mean, it's been a very, very, very busy week, very crazy week, and I've been trying to stay abreast of all the stories in between, doing lectures, things like that. But we saw R.Kelly was indicted on 10 counts of aggravated criminal assault, criminal abuse, criminal sexual abuse. And we saw that attorney Michael Avenatti, who was Stormy Daniels' attorney, we see that he provided at least one videotape. Actually, last Sunday I was going to do a story dealing with that, and last Sunday's show, the Sunday night shows were canceled. So we'll talk some about that also. And this one, I mean, these cases, there are 4 alleged victims here, and most of them are underage, okay? The prosecutor is Kim Fox, Cook County State's prosecutor, Kim Fox, and she did a press conference a few days ago. We're going to share, it was a very short press conference where she laid out the charges, okay? We're going to share that with, we'll share that press conference with you, because these charges are very, very, very serious charges. And R. Kelly's bond was set at $1 million. He has to put up 10%, which is $100,000. He has not been able to come up with $100,000 to post bond. Okay, very interesting. Then also this past week we saw Empire actor Jussie Smollett arrested for allegedly making up a hate crime attack. We saw the press conference that the Chicago Police Department did. Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson, okay? And there have been some other things that have come out, some contradictory information, a point or two contradictory information since that press conference, okay? He's going to do a big interview Monday morning on one of the Monday shows on the networks. And TMZ has an article dealing with how the $3,500 that was allegedly he paid to the two Nigerian brothers to do the fake attack, how that was for personal training, things like this, right? But what a lot of people are not talking about is the press conference that the prosecutor's office did. That's more damaging than the press conference that the police department did. The press conference that the prosecutor's office did in the Jussie Smollett case was very, very detailed. It went step by step by step by step by step. Okay? So we're going to share some of that press conference with you, because a lot of people are talking about Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson, who's an African-American man, and his tone and how furious he was, things like this. And I've heard people calling in to the shows. I've heard people calling in to Reverend Al Sharpton's show, you know, etc. Most people are not talking about the press conference that the prosecutor's office did. That did not get as much coverage, news coverage. But that's even worse, because if you understand how a prosecutor's office works, the prosecutor's office, they do their own investigation. They don't just take the information that the police investigation does. They're the ones that have to prosecute the case. So they do their own investigation also. Okay, we'll talk some about that as well. Then, we know a couple of weeks, was February 3rd, right? The New England Patriots won the Super Bowl once again. And, you know, I haven't watched the NFL game in 2 years. So that night, we talked about things surrounding the Super Bowl, like Gladys Knight singing the white national anthem. She took the midnight train back to Georgia to sing the white national anthem. We talked about Cardi B saying she couldn't perform at the Super Bowl out of respect for Colin Kaepernick. We talked about Colin Kaepernick, things like this, right? Well, New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, who's a billionaire and a friend of Donald Trump, was charged with 2 counts of soliciting a prostitute in Florida. This involves sex trafficking at a massage parlor in Florida. Now, we're not saying he's part of the sex trafficking ring. That's not any of the allegations. But according to the authorities, he is on tape engaging in sexual acts. Very interesting. And then NBC News reported, and a lot of, I know New York Times had an article about this also, dealing with how hate crimes have increased by 30% over the last 4 years. I wonder why. Hate crimes have increased by 30% over the last 4 years, okay? And at the same time, when you have Jussie Smollett, who allegedly faked a hate crime, then you have people on the right, Ann Coulter, a lot of Donald Trump supporters, then trying to dismiss all of the hate crimes and saying they're all fake. Ann Coulter tweeted this. Then also, this past week, we saw that a former Coast Guard lieutenant, or a Coast Guard lieutenant, plotted an attack on prominent Democrats and journalists. It took Donald Trump about 48 hours before he commented on this. Now, what do you think would have happened if this had been a Muslim plotting an attack on white Christians in this country? If this had been a Muslim plotting an attack on white Christians, they showed the cache of weapons that he had. Okay? Assault rifles, things like this. They showed the ammunition. What do you think would have happened if this had been a Muslim plotting an attack on white Christians in this country? What do you think would have been the response from Donald Trump? You think it would have taken him 48 hours, almost 48 hours to respond? No, he would have been tweeting within like the first 48 minutes. And he would be tweeting incessantly. He would continue to tweet about it. Okay? So we'll talk about that as well, because that's very serious. That ties into the rise in hate groups. We see New York Times has an article. Over 1,000 hate groups are now active in the United States, civil rights groups say. Okay? And this is the research done by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And the Southern Poverty Law Center said the number of hate groups rose by 7% in 2018 to 1,020, a 30% jump from 2014. Well, now at the same time, keep in mind, Donald Trump, in his annual federal budget that he sends to the House of Representatives to approve. They cut the funding for tracking these white supremacist organizations and things like this, monitoring them, and shifted that funding over to monitoring Muslim organizations because they fear Muslims so much. The fear of this administration is not against the white supremacists because he has white supremacists working in his administration, like one of his senior advisors, Stephen Miller. The fear is of Muslims. Very interesting. Over 1,000 hate groups are now active in the United States, civil rights group says. I wonder when Trump is going to call for them to stop and stop being violent. You know, if you're gonna, if you want to talk about nonviolence, you should talk about nonviolence towards the white supremacist organizations, the neo-Nazis and the KKK, things like this, that are inflicting violence upon people. If you're gonna tell anybody to be nonviolent, it should be them. Yeah, I mean, you remember at the Charlottesville in 2017, the Charlottesville attack, right? Who ended up dead? Who ended up driving a car into a crowd of people? So if you won't tell anybody to be nonviolent, it should be the white supremacists you tell to be nonviolent. So we'll talk about all that. And then this, I've spoken at a number of African American History Month events this February. And if you want me to speak at any events you have coming up, email me at info@africanhistorynetwork.com, info@africanhistorynetwork.com, or call me 313-462-0003, 313-462-0003. But what I noticed everywhere I have spoken this month so far, nobody knows what this year's official theme for African American History Month is. And it's Black Migrations, coming from the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. So we'll talk about that in our second hour as well, because it makes this cultural celebration relevant. You listen to the African History Network show, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, February 24th, 2019. And we are live tonight. We're back after a week off because of the bad weather here in Detroit. And once again, this is going to the last week of African American History Month, this monthly cultural celebration, historical celebration. But we know we celebrate our history 365 days out of the year. So in the second hour, I'm going to deal with some of the history of African American History Month, and I'll deal with this year's theme also. Every year there's a theme, an official theme that comes from ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And unfortunately, most people go to Black History Month celebrations and don't know that. And unfortunately, the people that put on the celebrations, oftentimes they don't know this either. Okay, so we're gonna deal with that as well. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word KEMET, K-E-M-E-T. Text the word KEMET, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter. Also go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And shout out to Lavanya Perriman. She had me on the show Friday night dealing with the presentation I was doing at Andy's Knowledge Cafe on Saturday, February 23rd. Okay, so this past week, I think it was Thursday, we saw R.Kelly was indicted on 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse, 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse. And NBCnews.com has an article about this as well. R. Kelly makes first court appearance, bond set at $1 million. The conditions of R. Kelly's bond includes that he has no contact with witnesses or alleged victims, and that he turn in his passport. Now, we've talked about surviving R. Kelly here on this show. We've also talked about how a lot of people don't really care about protecting African American women African-American girls, especially from sexual predators, when they happen to be men that just look just like the women and girls that they are inflicting this abuse upon. Okay, now R&B singer R.Kelly made his first court appearance on Saturday, February 23rd, and a judge set his bond at $1 million. R.Kelly, who has been charged with multiple criminal counts of sexual abuse of several underage victims, turned himself into police on Friday night. The conditions of R. Kelly's bond includes that he has no contact with witnesses or alleged victims, and that he turn in his passport. Now he is also not allowed to have contact with anyone age 18 or younger. R. Kelly, who is 52 years old, he just had a birthday a few weeks ago, faces 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse, according to Cook County State's Attorney's Office in Chicago. A grand jury indictment listed 4 victims, at least 3 of whom were younger than 17 years old at the time of the alleged abuse between May 1998 and January 2010. During a press conference after the bail hearing, Cook County State's Attorney Kimberly M. Fox described R. Kelly's alleged sexual assaults. One alleged victim met R. Kelly at her birthday party, Fox said. Another victim's alleged encounter with Kelly was recorded, according to Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox, adding that her office was in possession of the videotape in which R. Kelly allegedly engages in sex acts with a girl who repeatedly states she is 14 years old. We have the audio of the press conference. Let's go to this clip here. And turn it up in here so they can hear on Facebook.
Let me take it off of them.
Involving 4 victims. The first victim, initials HW, was involved in incidents which occurred between May 26, 1998 and May 25, 1999. A grand jury returned an indictment on 4 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the victim being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than the victim. The second victim, initials RL, was involved in an incident which occurred between September 26, 1998 and September 25, 2001. A grand jury returned an indictment on 2 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the victims being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than that victim. The third victim, initials LC, was involved in an incident which occurred February 18, 2003. A grand jury returned an indictment on 1 count of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the transmission of semen by Robert Kelly upon any part of the body of the victim for the purpose of sexual gratification during the course of an underlying felony of attempt criminal sexual assault. The fourth victim, initials JP, was involved in incidents which occurred between May 1st, 2009 and January 31st, 2010. A grand jury returned an indictment on 3 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the victim being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than the victim. Aggravated criminal sexual abuse is a Class 2 felony with a sentencing range of 3 to 7 years per count. It is also probationable. We anticipate that Mr. Kelly will appear in bond court tomorrow afternoon. Thank you.
All right, so she made it short. That's less than 3 minutes, okay? So that was Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox, African-American woman, announcing the charges against one Robert Sylvester Kelly. You know, we've talked about surviving R. Kelly here a lot. We've talked about protecting African-American women, which a lot of people really don't care about. And what I find interesting is, you know, if I post something about R. Kelly, people say, what about the priests molesting boys? Well, how many of those boys are African-American that they're molesting? Well, see, we have to understand that the black woman is the most disrespected woman in this country. And that's why when they're molested, when they're sexually abused, a lot of people don't really care about them. That's why. Okay? So why would you try to deflect to white priests largely, molesting white boys largely? And I disagree with it. It's wrong. But when we're talking about protecting our girls, our daughters, our nieces, okay? When we're talking about protecting them, why are you going to deflect to that with the priests? That doesn't even make sense. Because if R.Kelly was just the average brother from the south side of Chicago doing this, everybody would be talking about throwing the book at him. And if R.Kelly was a white man doing this to black girls, all these same people who were talking about give them a break and there's no evidence and all this and where the parents. Now, notice this. When you have the white priests molesting boys, nobody tries to blame the parents for what the priests are doing to the boys because they know it's wrong. Nobody trying to say, where are the parents? Nobody's saying that. Because they know what the priests are doing wrong. But when you have a black male celebrity like this, or just a black celebrity, and they're doing something like this to African-American girls, now they want to shift the blame from the predator, who if this was a white man doing this to black girls, they would not be saying we're the parents. They would not be trying to shift the blame to the parents because they know what the predator is doing wrong. Okay, if he allegedly did what they say he did, and I think they did, I think he did it. Okay, but see, notice how they try to play these games. But if this was just the average brother from the south side of Chicago doing the exact same thing outside of high schools, you know, 45, 50 years old, outside of high schools, talking to 16, 17-year-old black girls, all right, if he was doing the exact same thing, nobody would be saying, well, where are the parents? Because they know what he's doing is wrong. All right, so if we go back to this article here from NBCnews.com, R.Kelly makes his first court appearance, bond set at $1 million. And we'll go to the phone lines in just a minute. John, stand by. R.Kelly makes first court appearance, bond set at $1 million. Okay, this is from February 23rd, 2019, NBCnews.com. Also, the call-in number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Okay, so Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx said the relatives of the 14-year-old have identified her to the Cook County State's Attorney. Kim Foxx described a third alleged victim, who she said was 24 years old, when R. Kelly allegedly attempted to force her to engage in oral sex. The fourth alleged victim, had sex with R. Kelly while she was still a minor, according to Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx. After the hearing, R. Kelly's attorney Steve Greenberg said R. Kelly must come up with 10% of the bail in order to be released from jail. The reporting from thehill.com just a couple hours ago was that R. Kelly hasn't been able to come up with the $100,000 yet. Quote, this is someone who should be wealthy at this point in his career, but through mismanagement, he really doesn't have any money at this point, Attorney Greenberg said. Quote, I don't think he even owns the rights to I Believe I Can Fly. Now, he said that he believed, Attorney Greenberg said he believed R. Kelly would be able to, quote, come up with the money, end quote, adding that R. Kelly was upset being in jail. Okay. Quote, he's devastated. Here's someone who was once a huge star and now he's sitting behind bars, end quote. There's a whole lot of them who were once huge stars who should be sitting right next to him in prison. Some of them are huge stars right now who should be up underneath the jail. Their time is coming too. Their time is coming too. Notice how all this stuff. You got Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, his sweetheart deal that a U.S. attorney gave him, who's now in the Trump administration, that's coming under scrutiny now. All this stuff is happening at the same time. Now, R. Kelly's legal team is still building its defense, Greenberg said, adding that R. Kelly denies he ever forced anyone to have sex or that he ever had sex with minors. Okay, so I guess there's just all these other people just lying. No, they weren't minors at the time. I guess all these other people are just lying. He's a rock star. He doesn't have to have unconsensual sex. Wait a second. You trying to tell me that rock stars never raped anybody? Is that your argument? R. Kelly needs to get a new attorney. This is R. Kelly's attorney saying this. This is not his brother. This is not one of his homeboys. His attorney said he's a rock star. He doesn't have to have unconsensual sex. So your argument, right, is that rock stars never raped anybody. That's your argument. That's your defense? R. Kelly's next hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. Central Time on February 25th, which is Monday. On Friday, his attorney Steve Greenberg in Chicago said authorities are making R. Kelly a sacrificial lamb and that the musician, quote, will go to bond court on Saturday and will eventually be acquitted. Okay, so they tried that and he couldn't come up with the bond. Okay, yeah, okay, all right. We'll see how this one turns out. Okay, this is the charges here. This is worse than the 2002 charges that then went to court in 2008. One is not speculated. It's not believed that they're going to be able to drag this out for 6 years like they did the other case. Okay? Two, the charges and the evidence are more damaging. Okay? So we'll stay on top of this. And then also check out the CNN. So that clip that we shared with you was from CNN. R. Kelly charged with sexual abuse. R. Kelly charged with sexual abuse. And it lays out the counts also. They are just referring to the alleged victims with their first and last initials. Okay, so you're going to hear more about that. And also we know that Gloria Allred, and just this past week, has come forward with 2 new victims also as well. So yeah, okay, yeah, R. Kelly needs to get a new attorney. I'm telling you right now. All right. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to John, line 1. John, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from.
I'm from the west side, east side of Detroit. I missed you last week, man.
Yeah, I missed you too, man. You know, the weather was really bad out there, so they said we didn't have to come in. And I mean, about 6:30 p.m. I was headed home, and it was getting bad. So the Sunday night shows were canceled, man, just because of safety.
Yeah, well, you missed no doubt about it. I want to say that the college students in Mississippi took a knee weekend on the clients down there trying to start what you call the discovery about this doggone what his name, the Confederate guy that's
Robert E. Lee.
Yeah, right. That's right. And they took a knee down there the weekend. So I don't.
Yeah, this was at a college game. Okay, I saw a couple articles about that. I'm gonna try to pull that up here. Yeah, I saw a couple articles about that. And go ahead and tell us what happened.
Well, I just want to say that they really demonstrated that they were going to be ready to start the protesting, and I was wondering what the college student was and so forth. And so they had got into a little opportunity with them parents that protesting about Robert Lee and all that stuff. And so he was a little pushing and shit from what I hear. So I just wanted to know if you heard about it.
Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah, that's Ole Mississippi. So NBCnews.com has an article here. Ole Miss players take knee during anthem as pro-Confederate rally unfolds on campus. Okay. And let's see. Player Brian Tyree said, "We're just tired of these hate groups coming to our school." And what people have to understand, you've had a 30% increase in the number of hate groups over the past 4 years, and they are heavily recruiting on a lot of these college campuses. Okay? Now, Donald John Trump, who is a white supremacist, largely stays silent on this. Okay? See, this is an example of how elections have consequences. Go ahead, John.
And they tried to justify the characters within Washington, making racial statements and education to do this Native American. They were nice students. They were just that, and they were using nice, the bad words, and they were also been wearing what you call the black face or something.
The black face, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just wanted to
yeah, I saw that story. I did.
Yeah.
Okay, man. All right, thanks, John.
Well, thank you. Have a good week.
Okay, you too. All right, let's go to this story since John brought it up, and I have so many stories to cover, but since he brought it up, let's cover this quickly here. So, 8 University of Mississippi basketball players kneeled during the national anthem. Now, they should correct that and call that the white national anthem, because that's what it is. Who wrote it? Francis Scott Key, September 13th, 1814. Who did he write it for? White people. It wasn't written for us. Okay? Who passed it into law in Congress? White people? White congressmen? White senators? Who signed into law? The white president? So it should be called the white national anthem. Okay? 8 University of Mississippi basketball players kneeled during the national anthem ahead of Saturday's home game in response to a pro-Confederate rally nearby. Okay? Now, Breanne Tyree told reporters after the game, "We're just tired of these hate groups coming to our school." Now, 2 groups marched to a Confederate monument on the Oxford, Mississippi campus, only a few hundred feet from the game, to encourage the preservation of the symbol that has stood for more than 100 years. Now, keep in mind, right? There were 4,743 lynchings from 1882 to 1968. 581 lynchings took place where? In Mississippi. Mississippi is where you have Cindy Hyde Smith, the public hanging woman. Remember her? Okay, the senator. We covered that story extensively here on the show. All right, so that's in Mississippi. So Mississippi has a long history of lynchings. And then also, still in the Mississippi state flag is the canton, which is the Confederate battle flag. Okay, or what people call the Confederate flag. It's not the Confederate flag. It's the Confederate battle flag of Northern Virginia under General Robert E. Lee's army. That flag that was on the General Lee car on the TV show The Dukes of Hazzard. And what's the name of the car? General Lee. Who's the car named after? General Robert E. Lee, a white supremacist slave owner who was from Virginia, took up arms against the Union to maintain slavery. He was a traitor to the country. That's who the car is named after. What do you think would have happened if the name of that car had been the Adolf Hitler?
Can I have your name, please?
How many episodes of that show you think would have happened? They would have had if the name of the car had been the Adolf Hitler, and instead of the Confederate battle flag on top of the car, they had a Nazi swastika. How many episodes you think of that show would have existed? And I guarantee you, it wouldn't be on DVD. They wouldn't be showing it on reruns, things like that. So they named the car after General Robert E. Lee, who committed treason against the country. Now, after the Civil War, General Robert E. Lee was against having Confederate monuments, even those monuments dedicated to him, because there were times when he was invited to come to an unveiling of a monument in his honor, things like that. He was totally against it. The statue in August of 2017 there in Charlottesville, Virginia, when you had the Unite the Right rally, uniting to allegedly preserve and save a statue against General Robert E. Lee, Robert E. Lee would be against preserving that statue because he was against Confederate monuments and Confederate statues. General Robert E. Lee was also against using any of the Confederate flags after the Civil War was over with. So a lot of these white supremacists don't even understand the history that they're lying and saying is their own history. So General Robert E. Lee felt that after the Civil War, there needed to be a time of healing in this country. And he felt that the Confederate monuments and having the Confederate flags and all this stuff, this kept that from happening. So a lot of people have never researched General Robert E. Lee. Read the article from theatlantic.com called The Myth of the Kindly General Lee. The Myth of the Kindly General Lee. The legend of the Confederate leader's heroism and decency is biased in the fiction of a person who never existed. They talked about how he was a brutal slave owner, things like this. Okay, now after the Civil War, he was against the Confederate monuments and etc. Right? So here you have. So I have to give you that background information because a lot of people will have these events to preserve Confederate monuments which are white supremacist symbols. And if you study when the Confederate monuments were erected, The majority of them were erected from 1895 to 1915, and also from 1954, 1955 to 1970. Okay, these are pivotal times in the history of this country. So 1895 to 1915 is when you have an increase in lynchings, increase in white domestic terror in this country. 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson, U.S. Supreme Court case, solidifies Jim Crow laws and separate and equal. 1915, the movie The Birth of a Nation comes out, and that rejuvenates the Ku Klux Klan, because the Ku Klux Klan had almost died out by 1915. The Ku Klux Klan was founded December 24th, 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee. See, we should be talking about all this stuff during African American History Month. See, one of the biggest mistakes that we make with these celebrations is we just recycle the same 15 to 20 sanitized Negroes every year and then wonder why our children are not interested in that. And wonder why some adults are not interested in it either. We don't understand the whole history of African American History Month and the purpose. We're going to deal with that in the second hour. So when you study this history, right, if you look at the article from History.com, official website of the History Channel, how the U.S. got so many Confederate monuments. How the U.S. got so many Confederate monuments. You see a large amount of Confederate monuments pop up after 1954. What's significant about 1954? May 17th, 1954, Brown versus Board of Education desegregation case. In 1955, in 1954, after that takes place, you're going to have the White Citizens Council founded in Mississippi. You're going to have an increase in the number of private schools being built, and you're going to have an increase in the number of vouchers that are being used, because what they're doing at these private schools to keep the schools segregated, they're giving vouchers to lower class, poor white families, so they can fill those slots at the private schools and keep African Americans out because they don't want to desegregate. Watch Eyes on the Prize. Watch the documentary series Eyes on the Prize that deals with the history of the Civil Rights Movement. When Brown versus Board of Education came down in 1954, the governor of Virginia closed all the public schools, ended the public school year because they did not want to desegregate. Now, also what's going to happen is that you're going to have an increase in the number of schools named after Confederate heroes and Confederate soldiers. You're going to have a huge increase in that right after Brown versus Board of Education. And this goes right into the Civil Rights Movement, 1955, 1961, 1963, 1964. We have an increase in Confederate monuments erected and an increase in schools named after Confederate heroes. Now, these Confederate monuments, and Southern Poverty Law Center has an article dealing with this. Also, these Confederate monuments were erected largely to terrorize African Americans and to keep us in a subservient position in this country. And they were erected to remind us of the position that we were supposed to be in this country. So this is why every Confederate monument needs to come down, and they should not be destroyed. They should not be destroyed. They should be put in museums where they belong. They should not be destroyed. I'm against destroying Confederate monuments. I'm against illegally taking them down. I'm against damaging them. They should be taken down. They should be put in museums along with all the Confederate battle flags and the Confederate flags. In the place of the Confederate monuments should be a historical marker to talk about what was there and why it was taken down. Okay, this is what should happen to the Confederate monuments. Now, when you study Germany, there are no monuments to Adolf Hitler in Germany. You can't name buildings and schools and things like this after Adolf Hitler or prominent Nazis. They don't have that in Germany because they learned from that history, and that's the lowest point in their history. Now, they'll teach the history in schools of what happened, but they're not going to have monuments erected to them honoring these people. That's the same thing that should happen here. Okay, so if we go back to this article, we're coming up on a break. On the other side of the break, we'll go back to the phone lines. When we come back, we'll go back to Larry on line 1. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. Okay? And then also CNN has an article as well dealing with the true history of, the true history of Confederate monuments and why they represent racism. Okay? Actually, that's a clip from Roland Martin, news1.com. Roland Martin. Go watch that. That's on YouTube. The true history of Confederate monuments and why they represent racism. Because Roland Martin, I think in this clip, he interviewed James Lowen, who wrote the book Lies My Teacher Told Me. Lies My Teacher Told Me. Okay? And that is a very, very important book because James Lowen talks about how history is incorrectly taught in schools and the side effects of that, okay? But watch that clip from News One Now with Roland Martin, okay? All right, let's go back to this article here dealing with old Mississippi. And I'm trying to pull up this other article dealing with the Confederate battle flag. Okay, this is it. I have thousands of articles bookmarked. Okay, this one here, Confederate battle flag separating the myths from facts. Confederate battle flag separating the myths from facts. June 24, 2015 by Ben Brumfield for CNN.com. Read that article because it deals with the history and it explains to you how there were 3 different flags that flew over the Confederate States of America from 1861 to 1865. And the flag that we think is the Confederate flag was never one of them. All right? Okay, so 2 groups marched to a Confederate monument on the Oxford, Mississippi campus, only a few hundred feet from the game, to encourage the preservation of the symbol that has stood for more than 100 years. Quote, for over a decade, the administration and faculty have completely disregarded and disrespected the traditions of a once great Southern university, end quote, rally organizers said on Facebook. The demonstration was scheduled to last 4 hours Saturday afternoon. On Friday, protesters demanded the removal of all Confederate monuments from the old Mississippi Circle on campus. The Oxford community has been on alert after violence at a similar rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in August of 2017. Old Mississippi basketball coach Kermit Davis called Saturday's demonstration outside agitators. Quote, this was all about the hate groups that came to our community and tried to spread racism and bigotry, end quote, he said at a post-game press conference. It's created a lot of tension for our campus. Now, what people should really do is to read the statements of succession. Read the statements of secession of the 11 states in the Confederacy, including Mississippi, because they tell you why they seceded from the Union. And they seceded to maintain slavery, which was central to maintaining their wealth and their way of life. Okay? So they should go read the statements of secession. Now, the kneeling players, he said, quote, made an emotional decision to show these people they're not welcome on our campus, and we respect our players' freedom and ability to choose that, end quote. Now, the old Mississippi Rebels beat Georgia 72-71. University Police Chief Ray Hawkins said one person was arrested at Saturday's protest. Quote, we had to make an arrest for someone who failed to comply with the directions that were given, but that was the only reported incident, he said. Now, Police Chief Hawkins praised his officers for handling 3 protesters in as many days. Quote, I think our team has done an outstanding job of making sure our campus was safe. Robin Tanhill, mayor of Oxford, Mississippi, lauded the city's police, she's a woman, lauded the city's police department and residents. She said, quote, our community demonstrated that allowing freedom of expression is not an endorsement of divisive speech. Okay? Similar demonstrations, end quote, similar demonstrations from groups on both sides of the Confederate monument issue erupted Saturday at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Protesters met at the former site of a Confederate statue no arrests were reported. The real history of this country, the real history of slavery, the real history of the Civil War and Reconstruction has to be taught, because most people don't understand that history. Okay, if you heard me say February 13th, Wednesday, February 13th, when I called in the Reverend Al Sharpton show, and which is broadcasted here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., 9, 10 a.m. to Superstation, I was talking about how that group of 20 and odd Africans who came into Jamestown, Virginia, August 20th, 1619, did not have the status of slaves. They were actually indentured servants, and they were released after a few years and compensated with land. In chapter 2 of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., he lays this out. So a lot of our people don't understand the origins of slavery in the British colonies. The way we think that it started is not necessarily how it started. You're listening to 9, 10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9, 10 a.m. the Superstation, Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It's Sunday, February 24th, 2019. And we are live. Last week, because of the weather, the Sunday night shows were canceled because of safety concerns, but we're back tonight, okay? 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. We're broadcasting on Facebook Live on 910 AM Superstation on Facebook, and then also the African History Network on Facebook also, okay? Be sure to follow our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. Follow our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, I-M-H-O-T-E-P, on YouTube as well. YouTube channel's been growing. We have 45,000 followers on our YouTube channel, so that's been growing also. 313-778-7600 is the calling number. Right before the break, we were talking about the story at Old Mississippi, how you had the basketball team, Old Mississippi players take knee during national anthem as pro-Confederate rally unfolds on campus. We were also talking about R.Kelly. R.Kelly was charged with 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse. 3 of the 4 alleged victims were minors at the time of the alleged incidences, and we also played for you the prosecutor, okay, the press conference that the prosecutor had this past week as well. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Larry, line 1. Larry, welcome to the African History Network show. Larry, where are you calling from in Ohio, Larry? Okay, Sandusky, Ohio. All right, go ahead, Larry. Thanks for holding. Go ahead with your question or comment.
I want to say regards to R.Kelly, this whole issue around double jeopardy. I hope you would explain that to your listeners.
Double jeopardy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay. Also, in regards to R.Kelly, R.Kelly is also being charged, I understand, in a separate case, with this man law. Please explain
with which law?
You know, how the man law.
Okay, that really dealt with white slavery of women. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. They used Jack Johnson. That was the way that they came after Jack Johnson in order to
interstate. Well, traveling across state. If you're traveling across state, it really deals with back at the time white slavery. We're going to deal with human trafficking for sex purposes, things like this. Traveling across state. So you have the man law also. That was that. Actually, I have the charges here. CNN has the article, R.Kelly charged with sexual abuse, and they lay out the charges for the dealing with the 4 alleged victims. But double jeopardy. So here's the thing with the girl that's in the video that is alleged to have been 14 years old at the time that the video was made. From my understanding, this was the same girl who was in the previous video from 2002. But this is a different video. So the argument is being made that double jeopardy does not apply here. Here's why. Let me give you an example. Then I'll go to your comment. If I allegedly rob Chase Bank on Monday, February 25th, and you have a video of it, and then it goes to court, and they say, well, we can't determine whether this is him or not. We don't know if it's him or not. They throw it out. Then I robbed Chase Bank again on Monday. I robbed Chase Bank on the same date a year later, and they have a video. They're not going to say, well, we threw that out a year ago with those charges. We couldn't determine him. No, this is a new video. This is new evidence. This is additional crime. So this is why the argument is being made. Double jeopardy doesn't apply here. This is a different tape. Go ahead.
Well, part of they're using the same information that also family gave testimony that they could not identify with accuracy that was R.Kelly in that particular video.
When?
Well, they've already said that. They've already determined that. And
when?
Also be brought
No. Slow down. When was this determined?
When was what determined?
What you just said. You said the family of the 14-year-old girl.
I'm saying that the evidence that they're using, part of the evidence, when they indict, they don't have to mention everything that they're doing, but they're going to use a video that was used with R.Kelly, was vindicated of all charges.
Different video. You can't compare this. No, slow down.
Yes,
you can't compare the new video to the old video.
Sir, it's not new because they're bringing new charges.
No, it is. No, you haven't done the research. This is a new video. Go research this case. This is not the same video. They're saying it's the same girl. It's a different video. You have to go research this.
I really don't want to spend too much time on.
Well, you brought it up.
Okay. In that I brought it up, there has not been a trial. They're still waiting.
The charges just came. The charges. Well, slow down. The charges just came this past week. So of course there has not been a trial.
Exactly, and this is the reason why I say that information is being used. Sir, if you say things more, you keep saying things over and over again, people have a tendency to start believing that stuff.
I'm providing the sources so they can go research this themselves. No, slow down. I'm providing the sources. I played the press conference from the prosecutor. I'm providing the sources that has the video of the press conference and lays out the charges. You're the one that called in trying to conflate what was taking place. So don't get this twisted. You're the one. No, slow down. I'm going to let you finish. But see, you made a mistake when you called in and you said and you tried to make it seem like this was the same tape. It's not the same tape. If you actually research this, this is a different tape, which means that is potentially a different crime. It happened at a different time with the same person. So you can't. And also, if you go research that 2008 case, the jury said that they could not determine the age of the girl. The jury did not say they didn't think it was not R.Kelly. R.Kelly's defense was that was his brother in the video. But if you actually go research that case, and it was just recently an article from the Washington Post where the jury foreman of that case was interviewed, he said that the jury, it wasn't the case that the jury didn't think it was R.Kelly in the video. The jury at that time in 2008 could not determine the age of the girl. Her uncle would say, I think it was her uncle, was saying that was not, let me see, Sparkle said it was her niece. Sparkle's brother said that's not his niece. The parents of that girl did not testify. This is going to be a totally different case, totally different trial. Go ahead with your final comment.
Well, my final comment is that if one is presumed innocent until proven guilty, sir.
That's true.
R.Kelly has been tried in the court of public opinion.
That's a different case.
Including they're coming from people that have that type of responsibility and that authority, not respecting the man's innocence. The man is innocent until proven guilty. He does not have to defend himself against assumption, what assumes that he has done. This is a court of law. The court of law determines whether or not he is innocent and or guilty. So I really wish that you all would do that. Spend more time on looking into those issues about his guilt or his innocence instead of coming out saying that the man is guilty and being given a man a trial.
Well, let me respond to you. We played the press conference from the prosecutor. We dealt with some of the charges against him. I've talked extensively about surviving R.Kelly. I've played clips of the alleged survivors, things like this. The evidence is mounting against him, and it does not look good for him.
Yeah, but I mean, you're putting out documentaries out here. He's not able to answer anything about.
Oh, he can answer them. No. He can answer them. He can go point by point. He can do interviews. He can go on his social media. He can go point by point. Well, slow down. We ain't gonna both talk at the same time. You have to call somebody else's show with that. We're not gonna both talk at the same time. I'm answering your response. He can go on social media. He can do media interviews. He can respond to it directly himself. Okay, his attorney has responded, and his attorney has not helped him at all. Actually, if you go Google Steve Greenberg and look at his responses to this, Steve Greenberg, I didn't even get a chance to cover it on this show because we ran out of time. Steve Greenberg actually did an interview on ABC News Nightline and said that R.Kelly told him that Aaliyah lied to him about her age. Everybody knows that's a damn lie. Now, this is R.Kelly's attorney. Everybody go research this. Go Google that. Okay? You can watch the actual video. His attorney said in this interview that R.Kelly told him that Aaliyah lied about her age. Then the video surfaces of R.Kelly working with Aaliyah in the studio and introducing her and saying she was 14 years old. That's a damn lie. Thanks for calling. See, don't call in here and you don't know what the hell you're talking about, because you're going to be embarrassed. I'm trying to tell you. Don't call in here and don't know what the hell you're talking about. Thanks for calling from Ohio. I forgot what his name was. But thanks for calling anyway, Sandusky. All right, y'all need to do some research on this case, okay? I can provide you with this. And on the show, I had it queued up to deal with that interview that R. Kelly's attorney did. Okay, but I ain't have time. We ran out of time. Now read this article from theroot.com. Aaliyah lied about her. Aaliyah, quote, lied about her age, end quote, and R. Kelly didn't know. Lawyer claims. Read this article. This is a bunch of nonsense. I'm telling you, R. Kelly needs a new attorney, because this guy gonna get R. Kelly convicted. I'm telling you right now. Okay, this attorney right here, Steve Greenberg, he's gonna get R. Kelly convicted. Okay. And let me see if we can pull up the video. Read this article. Everybody knew Aaliyah was underage. Okay. Then in Surviving R. Kelly, it was one of the people that worked with them talked about how they forged the documents to be able to get a marriage license, showing she was 18 years old. Everybody knew that girl was underage. Aaliyah's from Detroit. Everybody knew that girl was not 18 years old. Man, get out of here with that nonsense. All right, now. There was another article, let's see here. ABC News had it. So what we'll try to do is pull this up. And because you got to hear this interview. And I think they played it on Good Morning America, or GMA also. Okay, it was originally on ABC News Nightline and then on GMA as well. Okay, so we'll try to pull that up for you. All right, 313-778-7600. is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Let's switch gears. Let's go to Jussie Smollett, right? So Jussie Smollett was was indicted this past week. Oh, this was a busy week. Jussie Smollett was arrested for allegedly making up a hate crime attack. Now, there have been a couple other points that have come out since then, right? The Washington Post has a good article. Jussie Smollett's bond set at $100,000. Judge calls charges despicable. We see that NBCnews.com has an article as well dealing with, let's see, which one is this one? Jussie Smollett arrested for allegedly making up hate crime attack. The actor's lawyers say he, quote, enjoys the presumption of innocence, end quote, particularly in light of what they call leaks of, quote, information, both true and false, end quote. Jussie Smollett needs to get a new attorney also.
Yeah.
This is another one that needs to get a new attorney. Let me explain to you why. Because I saw the full statement from Jussie Smollett's attorney, right? And I'm going to read the statement in its entirety, okay? Let me see if I can pull it up here. Okay, enjoys the presumption of innocence. Let's see if we can pull this up. Okay, so given the circumstances, we intend to conduct a thorough investigation and to mount an aggressive defense. All right, and now here's the problem with this statement. If your client is innocent, you're not going to say my client enjoys the presumption of innocence. You're going to say my client is innocent. Presumption does not have to be consistent with reality. See, you can presume that you're going to get paid on Friday. That doesn't mean you're going to get paid on Friday. See, go read the statement from Jussie Smollett's attorney. Jussie Smollett and R.Kelly both need new attorneys. In a statement released after Smollett was charged, his attorney said, quote, he enjoys the presumption of innocence, particularly when there has been an investigation like this one where information both true and false have been repeatedly leaked. I saw the full statement. His attorney did not say Jussie Smollett is innocent. My client is totally innocent of all the charges. My client did not do this. Okay, because if you're an attorney and your client is totally innocent, that's what you're going to say. You say, my client is totally innocent of all charges. My client did not do this. You're not going to say, he enjoys the presumption of innocence. That's not what you're going to say. You're going to say, my client is innocent. So meanwhile, the top prosecutor in the Chicago area, Cook County State's Attorney Kimberly Fox, has recused herself from the case. She did that this past week. She recused herself from the case. The state's attorney stepped away from the matter because she had, quote, had conversations with a family member of Jussie Smollett about the incident and their concerns and facilitated a connection to the Chicago Police Department, end quote, a spokesperson for the office said. Cook County State's Attorney Kimberly Fox's first assistant prosecutor, Joe Magatz, M-A-G-A-T-S, will handle the case. Police investigated the reported attack as a, quote, possible hate crime, end quote. And some celebrities, including Empire cast members and gay rights advocates, flocked to social media to express their support for Jussie Smollett. We know that Terrence Howard, the co-star of the show, came out in support of Jussie as well today. Now, but some other social media users began to question his claims when police said they were not able to find video of the incident after going through a plethora of footage through many surveillance cameras in the affluent Streeterville neighborhood of Chicago where the attack allegedly occurred. Okay, so let's see here. All right. Okay, let's continue. So on January 30th, police released pictures from a surveillance camera located near where Jussie Smollett said he was attacked that showed two men who police said were, quote, potential persons of interest. The two men were taken into custody on February 13th and questioned. They were released 2 days later on Friday without charges. Okay, these are the two Nigerian brothers. They are born here, U.S. citizens born here of Nigerian descent. The two men were taken into custody on February 13th and questioned. They were released 2 days later on Friday without charges. Police said the two, who are brothers, were no longer suspects in the case and were cooperating in the probe. Now on Saturday, February 23rd, a police source said, I guess Saturday before that last, a police source said the probe had shifted into whether the actor had paid the two brothers, Ola and Abel Osundero. Okay, Oshun. It's actually Oshun. It's spelled O-S-U-N, but it's actually Oshun. Oshun is an Orisha. Orisha, the Orishas are the forces of nature, the deities in the spiritual system of Ifa, practiced amongst the Yoruba of Nigeria. Okay, so I can look at these names and tell this Ola and Oshun. I can tell those are Yoruba names. So these brothers are Yoruba, it appears. Ola and Abel Oshundero to stage an assault. Okay, investigators had discovered that the brothers had purchased the rope used in the alleged attack. So they have the brothers at the hardware store, wherever they bought it from, buying the rope and some other stuff also. That's on video as well. Okay, now. Let's see, who's Google Melly? Okay, I think he's with the prosecutor's office. Okay, and we'll continue this on the other side of the break. Let's see here. Okay, so Google Melly, so Chicago Police Department spokesman Anthony Google Melly said Jussie Smollett was in the custody of detectives who had earlier contacted Jussie Smollett's legal team, quote, to negotiate a reasonable surrender for his arrest, end quote. He could face probation or up to 3 years in prison if convicted. So even if he's convicted, he may not do prison time. He may just get probation, okay? All right. So, look, we're coming up on a break. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. When we come back, I want you to hear from the prosecutor's office. They're going to lay out a timeline of what happened. This is very detailed as well. You don't want to miss this. 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll go to the phone lines when we come back also.
We're back.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. And I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, February 24th, 2019, and we're live. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Follow us there. Also, follow us on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, I-M-H-O-T-E-P on YouTube. Right before the break, we talked about R.Kelly, we talked about Jussie Smollett, we talked about the old Mississippi players on the basketball team who took a knee during the national anthem, or the white national anthem, as the pro-Confederate rally unfolded on campus at the same time. And in a minute here, I'm going to share with you the press conference that the prosecutor's office held in the Jussie Smollett case. And the prosecutor laid out, from the prosecutor's office, because Cook County State's Attorney Anita Alvarez recused herself from this case, okay, but somebody from the prosecutor's office actually read this detailed timeline of what happened, okay, so you don't want to miss that. But before we go there, let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Nita on line 1. Nita, thanks for holding. Welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
Hi, Detroit.
From Detroit? All right.
Yes.
Go ahead with your question or comment.
The comment is, when the young man called in from Ohio,
Yeah.
in regards to R.Kelly,
Yep.
you know, unfortunately, he doesn't have his facts in order, and he sounded like he was trying to defend R.Kelly.
Go ahead.
And for him to call with the wrong information, misinformation, and then try to put it on you, with basically saying that you didn't know what you were speaking
Right,
on.
right.
So I'm so glad you corrected him.
Right.
What I would like to say first.
Yep, no problem.
Then secondly, I was listening to the show earlier, and you were saying about how black women are the most disrespected women. I just would like to
In America.
Disagree with you, but in America, I don't disagree with you. I strongly agree with you, but I would like for you to explain it to me just a little bit more, and I'll hang up and listen to what your
Explain what to you a little bit more.
Could you reiterate more why you say that black women are the most disrespected women in America? Like
Yeah, it's a holdover from slavery. And we were dehumanized. We were dehumanized during slavery. The sexuality of African American women during slavery was a commodity, and then also you're dealing with white male patriarchy in this country as well. You're dealing with male chauvinism. You're dealing with sexism. So African American women get hit with racism and sexism. Okay, so they get hit with both of them. All right, and then so let's look at it this way, right? When you look at negative corporate control hip-hop videos, you see them dehumanizing African-American women, objectifying African-American women's bodies in them. You see them usually, oftentimes, half-naked, while the men are not half-naked. Now, this is controlled by Europeans, just because the artist is black. No, who controls which songs get on the CD and which songs don't get on the CD? Who green lights the videos? Who controls the budgets for the videos? Who determines what type of videos are put out? Because see, what you'll find when you research this, the same record companies that have the hip hop artists on them, they have white pop artists, top 40 artists. They're not putting half-naked white women in general. They're not putting half-naked white women in these white videos, having them with money falling from the sky, having them in strip clubs, things like this. It's totally different. When you watch, if you go to like Fuse TV, you go to MTV, you watch like the top 40 videos. If you watch that, and then you go to, say, the BET Jams, and you watch an hour of the current hip-hop videos from BET, okay, you think you're on two different planets.
No, I totally agree with you. And the same thing I must say, this is maybe changing the subject a little, but it's well common. Even when you, like you said, the European control it, even when you see magazines or billboards now, the black woman is so disrespected. They have replaced the black woman with the Caucasian woman and a black man now, if you pay attention.
And some of them, yeah. And some of them. Now, here's why. So here's what happens, right? There's a growing number of mixed race couples in this country, a growing number of biracial mixed race children as well. So you have marketers, and my background is in marketing and sales and things like this, part of my background. You have marketers who tap into that growing demographic, okay? That and this has been documented. They tap into that growing demographic. Now, what you're going to see, I did a YouTube video about this. You can go watch it at Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP on YouTube. You'll see more when we look at the commercials. And, you know, I've studied commercials, things like that. I had to take advertising at Wayne State's Business School and in the marketing department. When you look at a lot of commercials, you'll more likely see white men with black women in these types of commercials. You'll more likely see white men with black women. You have a few with black men with white women. But see, when Cheerios came out with their commercial, their campaign with an African-American father and a white mother and a mixed race daughter, they got all types of hate mail, things like this. They got a huge backlash from that. You're going to see more of these commercials. There's one for, I think, is Blue Box, the company that sends you the ingredients to make the food, things like this. You have one there. You have a number of different commercials. There's one for Tide with a white father and a black mother and a mixed race daughter. So if you, I go through and I show you a number of different commercials like this. Okay, that's going on right now. All right, so most of them is a white man with a black woman.
So how come you don't see the commercials Asians with another race or Arabs with another race? They usually with one another. How come they have just... Well,
there's a larger percentage of African Americans in this country than Asians. Asians, I think, are about 4 to 5% of the U.S. population is African Americans, a little more than 14%. Now, about 49% of Asian Americans marry I think it's about 49%, almost 50%, marry non-Asians. You have a lot of Asian Americans that marry white people. But they don't, but right now, you'll see that a little bit, but it's more us, but also the market, also there's more African Americans than there are Asians in the country as well. Okay, so you may start seeing that more as that market grows, but when it comes to mixed race couples, you'll probably find more that are African American and white than you find Asians and white. Okay, in general, but you do in the Asian community, they are dealing with some issues. For instance, there's an ongoing debate in the Asian community over whether they should have eye surgery to round their eyes, so they don't look as ethnic. Okay,
exactly.
And those who are going into media, going into the news industry, or things like this, these are issues that are being debated. Okay, and see, the other thing is that Asian Americans have been elevated in this country to be the model minority. Okay, they've been allowed to assimilate more in this country. Washington Post has 2 articles that deal with how Asian Americans became the model minority in this country. All right. I got to move on. I got to get to these other topics here.
Just one other question.
Go ahead.
Wayne County Community College, would you say it's predominantly Caucasian students or African American students that go there? Just out of the top of your head, which one would you?
Well, they have 5 campuses. From my understanding, of all the 5 campuses, majority probably African Americans. Now, at the, I think is one campus where they're going to have a higher percentage of white students. It may be downriver. Is one of those campuses where they have a higher percentage of white students. I can't remember. I used to do consulting.
But I think you're correct. It would be downriver, and
Yeah.
I would just like to know how come on their website they put Diamond on Cajun on the website. That's all I wanted to say.
So is this the website? Is this the main website for
the main,
all the
main
campuses?
website.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is.
You have to call them and ask them that question. I don't know.
It's marketing. That's what it is.
Yeah, the marketing probably. So it may be that's who they're trying to recruit as gentrification takes place in the city of Detroit, which is Negro Removal 3.0. As that takes place, that may be who they're trying to market to.
And that will be my point.
But
yeah.
you want to contact Wayne County Community College. I can't speak for them.
Yeah, I just don't know. You can't. But I just wanted to bring that up. It's
Right.
Like, you know.
But I do have a background in marketing, so I understand target marketing. I understand crafting messages. Okay.
Right.
Okay, but thanks for calling, Nita.
Taking my call.
All right, no problem. Okay, read this article. Surviving R.Kelly sheds light on bigger issue. Black women raped at higher rates, but report less. Now, we talked about this on this show. This exact article. I played this segment for you. Okay, this is from WXYZ.com. They picked it up from their Cleveland affiliate. Read this article. Watch the video. Surviving R.Kelly sheds light on bigger issue. A bigger issue than just one man. Black women raped at higher rates, but reported less. Okay, I want to go to this clip here. This is from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office dealing with the charges and a detailed timeline dealing with one Jussie Smollett. Let's go to this clip.
A written letter that Sin Space Chicago Film Studios, which is the facility on the southwest side of Chicago where the Empire television show is filmed. This letter contained written threats directed towards defendant Smollett and contained a then unknown white powdery substance. The letter also contained cutout letters pieced together which stated, Smollett Jussie, you will die, black F, and the word MAGA was handwritten on the envelope where the return address typically is located. This powdery substance has since been determined to be crushed ibuprofen tablets. The letter also contained a drawing of a stick figure which appears to have a rope around the neck and a gun pointed towards it. Law enforcement authorities were contacted, and the letter was turned over to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is currently conducting forensic analysis of the letter. In January of 2019, and at all times relevant hereto, defendant Smollett was close friends with an individual by the name of Abimbola Abel Osundero, who was 25 years old. Smollett and Abel initiated their friendship in the fall of 2017. During the course of this friendship, defendant Smollett and Abel socialized together, exercised together, as well as worked on the Fox television series Empire. Within that working relationship, Abel was a stand-in for a character named Kai, who is a love interest of defendant Smollett's character on the Empire TV show. Additionally, text messages between defendant Smollett and Abel revealed that Abel was a source of designer drugs for defendant Smollett. Specifically, since the spring of 2018 and on several occasions, defendant Smollett requested Abel to provide him with Molly, which is street name for the narcotic ecstasy. Text messages generated by defendant Smollett to Abel, specifically starting on the morning of January 25th, 2019, revealed defendant Smollett asking Abel when he would be leaving on his trip to Nigeria. This trip was scheduled to take place on the evening of January 29th of 2019, and it had been planned by Abel and his brother, Olabenjo Ola Osundero, who's 27 years old, 2 months prior. After Abel confirmed the date and time of his trip, defendant Smollett texted Abel stating, "Might need your help on the low. You around to meet up to talk face to face?" The two then made arrangements to meet at the Sin Space Studios that afternoon, where defendant Smollett subsequently drove Abel home to Abel's apartment in the Lakeview neighborhood. During the ride, Smollett indicated to Abel his displeasure that the Empire Studios handling of the racist and homophobic letter he received 3 days prior. Defendant Smollett then stated that he wanted to stage an attack where Abel would appear to batter him. Defendant Smollett also suggested that Abel's older brother Ola assist him with the attack. Defendant Smollett had met Ola on several previous occasions through Abel. Additionally, Ola had appeared as an extra of the Empire TV show. Abel and Ola are both dark-skinned black males born in the United States with Nigerian descent. When defendant Smollett and Abel reached Abel's apartment at approximately 5 p.m. on January 25, 2019, Ola, who was then living with Abel, was summoned into defendant Smollett's vehicle. Once inside, Smollett asked Ola if he could trust him. When Ola said he could, Smollett detailed his plans of the attack to the brothers. Smollett stated that he wanted them to appear to attack him on the evening of January 28, 2019, near his apartment building in Streeterville. Defendant Smollett also stated he wanted the brothers to catch his attention by calling him an Empire F, Empire N. Defendant Smollett further detailed that he wanted Abel to attack him, but not hurt him too badly, and to give him a chance to appear to fight back. Defendant Smollett also included that he wanted Ola to place a rope around his neck, pour gasoline on him, and yell, "This is MAGA country." Prior to the brothers getting out of Smollett's car, Smollett provided Abel with a $100 bill to purchase the rope, gasoline, ski mask, gloves, and the red baseball caps, which resemble the ones that say, "Make America Great Again." The ride from Cinescape Studios to the Osendero brothers' home and the meeting between Smollett and the brothers is corroborated by CPD pod videos and cellular phone tower data of Smollett's phone number. On the late morning of Sunday, January 27, 2019, Smollett drove his vehicle back to the Lakeview neighborhood to pick up the brothers and show them the scene where he wanted the staged attack to take place. Smollett then drove the brothers to the corner of New Street and North Water Street in Chicago, where the staged attack was to take place. This was just outside of Smollett's apartment building. Further details were provided by Smollett, which included that the staged attack was to take place near the stairs on the southwest corner of New and North Water Streets at 10 p.m. the following night. Smollett also instructed the brothers not to bring their cell phones with them. Smollett directed the brothers' attention towards a surveillance camera on the corner, which he believed would capture the incident. There was a change in the plan in that bleach was going to be used instead of gasoline during the simulated attack. Smollett then drove the brothers home and provided them with a $3,500 personal check made payable to Abel, which was backdated to January 23rd of 2019. On the morning of January 28, 2019, the date of the planned attack, the brothers purchased the clothing items at a local beauty supply store and the rope at a nearby hardware store using the $100 bill that Smollett had given them. These purchases were corroborated by surveillance video and a receipt. Abel also deposited Smollett's check that same day in his own bank account. Later that evening, the plan had changed and the time of the attack had to be pushed back because Smollett's flight into O'Hare Airport from New York had been delayed by 4 hours. Smollett's plane eventually landed at O'Hare at 12:30 a.m. on January 29th of 2019. At 12:49 a.m., there's a phone call between Smollett and...
All right, we got to pause it right there. Okay, so you can watch that in its entirety. It's a 14-minute clip. It's very detailed, laying out the whole timeline of this alleged event, alleged orchestrated attack, all this stuff. That's from NBCChicago.com. NBCChicago.com. That's from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. Okay, that's one of the prosecutors. When prosecutors prosecute a case, they do their own investigation. They don't just take all the information from the police investigation. They do their own investigation. I watched this full press conference. The information from the prosecutor's office is more damaging than the information that was laid out in the press conference that the police did. Okay? So this is called Read the Proffer, Proffer. Prosecutors detail allegations against Jussie Smollett. February 21st, 2019, NBCChicago.com. Okay, so check this out also. Now, TMZ has an article, TMZ.com, where they talk about how the $3,500 check was actually him paying for personal training services, right? However, let's look at something here. Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's longtime attorney, was reimbursed the $130,000 that he paid to Stormy Daniels. He was reimbursed that over a period of time, allegedly by Donald Trump, disguised as paying for legal fees. This is documented. Okay? This is how Trump allegedly paid Michael Cohen back the $130,000 over a period of time. Each month, it was recorded as legal fees. So, is it possible that he was paying for personal training? Okay, it's possible. Now you got to go eradicate all this other stuff also. Go watch this 14-minute press conference laying out this whole timeline. Okay, go watch that. All right. So it could be that he was paying for personal training. It could be he was paying for personal training and something else. It's possible, but you have to put that within the context of this whole timeline that was being laid out. Now, Washington Post has an article. Jussie Smollett's bond set at $100,000. Judge calls charges despicable. Prosecutors identified two men. Okay, so read this article also. It goes deep into this, okay? I got to shift gears. We run out of time. All right, so this past week, we know that Robert Kraft, right, owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft was busted this week. This was not a good week for friends of Donald Trump. You had Jeffrey Epstein in trouble. You have Robert Kraft. Now, police described deplorable conditions at spa and Robert Kraft sex sting. Okay, and did I send you the clip of for Robert Kraft from YahooNews.com? I see that clip.
I got it.
Okay, let's go to this clip. This is from the press conference with the authorities. Turn up here.
Sports franchise owner that we believe it to be. Could you please speak to that name and that situation?
Yes, sir. He is one of the individuals.
Who he is?
That would be Mr. Robert Kraft.
Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots.
Yes, sir.
What is he being charged with?
He's being charged with the same offenses as the others, and that is soliciting another to commit prostitution.
And how many counts may he face?
Right now we have two.
That would be two separate incidences or visits to the Orchids of Asia Day Spa, or one visit with multiple charges from that one visit?
Two different visits.
Okay, so that was the sheriff during the press conference. Okay, there's about 25 guys busted in this sting. They allegedly have Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, on video. This ain't just a he said, she said. They've been doing surveillance for about 6 months on this establishment. Now, YahooNews.com has an article, report Robert Kraft, not biggest name involved in prostitution ring, February 22nd, 2019. Robert Kraft's alleged involvement in a prostitution ring may be the tip of the iceberg. Now, it's not alleged that he was orchestrating the ring. He was paying for services, allegedly. Okay, that's his alleged involvement in this. The New England Patriots owner, who was charged Friday by Jupiter, Florida police on 2 counts of soliciting a prostitute, may not be the most high-profile person tied to the story, ESPN's Adam Schefter said Friday on SportsCenter. Quote, I am also told that Robert Kraft is not the biggest name involved. Okay. Is something playing? Okay. I'm also told that Robert Kraft is not the biggest name involved down there in South Florida, Adam Schefter said on SportsCenter. It's unclear who that name would be. Okay. So now WPTV's Maris Badcock tweeted a list of the 24 others charged along with Robert Kraft as a result of a months-long investigation, and at first glance, none stand out more than the prominent Patriots owner. Okay, we may hear plenty more about this case, however. Okay, so check out this article from yahoonews.com, and let me pull up this other article here. So this was big news when it broke, and CBSNews.com also has an article. Police describe deplorable conditions at spa and Robert Kraft sex sting. So the owner of the New England Patriots, billionaire Robert Kraft, could get in trouble with the NFL after he was charged with soliciting a prostitute. Kraft was among the 25 people charged Friday as part of a widespread crackdown on sex trafficking in Jupiter, Florida. Now, the case is part of a months-long investigation. Jupiter police began surveillance of the Orchids of Asia Day Spa last November 2018. Okay, so it's about November, so it was about 4 months or so. They gathered evidence using body cams and undercover cameras both outside and inside the business. Investigators said they have video of Robert Kraft paying for sex not once but twice. So good he had to go back. Okay, now authorities allegedly. Okay, I wonder what Trump is going to say. Trump was asked about this, you know, and he said, "Oh, you know, it's a shame," things like that, right? I wonder if Trump going to start tweeting about this. Okay. Now, authority, I wonder if Trump's going to say, "Can I get the number to that place?" Now, authorities described how the women worked in deplorable conditions, were lured into the sex trade, and averaged 1,500 men a year. A police report also gives detailed accounts of more than 24 encounters in which money was exchanged for sexual services. More than 24 encounters in which money was exchanged for sexual services. In case you don't know, that's against the law. Especially at an establishment like that. Especially at an open establishment like that. Now, in one case, describing how, quote, male, M-A-L-E, male 4, number 4, laid one $100 bill and one $150 bill on the massage table, end quote, and the woman was, quote, seen taking the bills, end quote. Now, a Robert Kraft spokesperson said they, quote, categorically deny that Mr. Kraft engaged in any illegal activity, end quote. Did you see both videotapes, or are you just saying this because he told you to say this? I'm just curious. Did you see the videotapes and then say, "Oh, that's not him"? Are you gonna say that's are you gonna say that was his brother, like R.Kelly's defense in the first trial? He said that was his brother. Is that going to be the defense? Okay, we'll see what happens with this. If they got him on video, it's not looking good. Now, under Robert Kraft, who was 77 years old, the New England Patriots have become one of the most dominant and successful teams in professional sports, playing in 10 Super Bowls and winning 6, including the latest a few weeks ago. This was February 3rd. Now, according to Forbes, Robert Kraft is worth $6.6 billion. Okay, and so check out the rest of this article. Police describe deplorable conditions at spa and Robert Kraft sex sting. This is from CBSNews.com, February 22nd, 2019. Okay, now. Also, NBCSports.com has an article. Robert Kraft categorically denies prostitution allegations in statement. Robert Kraft categorically denies prostitution allegations in statement. Check that out also. We're running out of time here. Let me quickly shift gears. Visit our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, I-M-H-O-T-E-P. You can watch the videos I've been doing for the city of Inkster, Michigan at their different African American History Month events. New York Times reported Coast Guard officer plotted to kill Democrats and journalists. Prosecutors say, why did it take Donald Trump almost 48 hours to come out with this, to respond to this? Because if this had been a Muslim in the Coast Guard plotting to kill white Christians, oh, he would still be tweeting about this right now. A Coast Guard lieutenant and self-described white nationalist who was arrested in Maryland last week was plotting to kill a long list of prominent journalists and Democratic politicians, as well as professors, judges, and what he called, quote, leftists in general, end quote, federal prosecutors said in a court filing on Tuesday. Lieutenant Christopher Paul Hassan, H-A-S-S-O-N, age 49, was arrested on Friday, that would be February 22nd, on gun and drug charges, but prosecutors said in the filing that those charges were just the, quote, proverbial tip of the iceberg, end quote. So, so there's been a growing number of white domestic terrorist events and white hate groups as well, hate groups also, okay? New York Times has the article, over 1,000 hate groups are now active in the United States. Civil rights group says, read that also. We've seen an increase in the number of hate groups by a 30% jump since 2014. As of last year, there were 1,020 active hate groups. Now, the filing argued that Lieutenant Hassan should be held until he is tried, describing him as a, quote, domestic terrorist threat, end quote, who intended, quote, to murder innocent civilians on a scale rarely seen in this country, end quote. Why is Donald Trump so silent on this? At a hearing on Thursday, Magistrate Judge Charles B. Day ordered that the lieutenant remain in federal custody for at least the next 14 days. In their filing, prosecutors quoted a letter that he drafted to friends in 2017 and that the authorities found on his computer. In the letter, Lieutenant Christopher Paul Hassan, who works as an acquisitions officer at Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, wrote, quote, I am dreaming of a way to kill almost every last person on the earth. I think a plague would be most successful, but how do I acquire the needed Spanish flu, botulism, anthrax? Not sure yet, but we'll find something, end quote. In the last month, prosecutors said the lieutenant used his work computer to draw up a list of prominent figures he called, quote unquote, traitors and wanted to kill, including many well-known anchors and hosts on CNN and MSNBC news shows, and a number of Democratic elected officials. Now, keep in mind, Trump repeatedly calls the media, he calls them the fake media, he calls them the enemy of the state, the enemy of the country. He talks about how deplorable they are until he wants to have an interview with the New York Times to promote whatever lies he wants to promote. He calls them the failing New York Times until it's time for him to have another interview with the New York Times. Now, this list included, among others, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Representative Maxine Waters, who Donald Trump continues to insult. He calls her low IQ. Okay, he talks about her looks, things like this. Now, Senator Richard Blumenthal, whom he referred to as Senator Blumen, quote unquote, sin Blumen Jew, end quote, that's what he said, racial epithet, and many of the senators running for president in 2020. Okay, now, he had recently performed internet searches seeking information about whether senators and Supreme Court justices receive Secret Service protection, the court filing said. On Thursday, Senator Blumenthal told CNN that the authorities had not warned him that his name appeared on the list. Quote, I found out from the news when I heard about it last night, end quote. All right. Okay, look, we're out of time. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Our DVD lectures are there. You can sign up for the online courses I teach. You can donate to the African History Network. Click on the yellow donate button at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Also, PayPal.me/The AHN Show, PayPal.me/The AHN Show, where we post more videos of me dealing with this year's theme of African American History Month, which is Black migrations, dealing with the transatlantic slave trade, the Great Migrations, Great Migration of 1915 and 1970, the Marcus Garvey movement, the Harlem Renaissance, all those things as well. That's this year's official theme. Visit ASALH.org, ASALH.org, Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which is the governing body of African American History Month, formerly Black History Month. Stay tuned for Pastor Mo. Thanks for tuning in to the African History Network show, 9 10 a.m. Superstation. Remember, right now, correct wrong behavior is not over till we win Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.